Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to explain how to complete the first part of the final assessment. So we are now into final assessments in which you are going to be writing two paragraphs. So you're going to be writing one paragraph, which is an opinion paragraph, and you're going to be writing another paragraph, which could be a compare paragraph or a contrast paragraph, depending on which one you want to write. So you can choose to write compare or contrast, but you don't have to write both. Okay, so what are you writing these paragraphs on? You're going to be writing them on a folktale or a short story. So you're going to have to read the folktale or read the short story, write an opinion paragraph about what you think of this story, and a compare or contrast paragraph where you compare or contrast yourself with a character from the story. Okay, so paragraph 1, as we said, is an opinion paragraph, and the topic will be, do you think the short story you read is a good story? Do you think it's a good story, or do you think it's not a good story? Paragraph number 2, compare or contrast yourself with a character from your story. So we are going to say that the outlines for these paragraphs are going to be due on Thursday, June 4th. You're going to get some feedback, and then the completed paragraphs will be due on Monday, June the 8th. Alright, so here is your list of stories. So just in brief here, the first story is an indigenous story from the US. So there's essentially it's kind of similar to maybe some of the other folktales that we've looked at, but there is an indigenous boy who develops a relationship with a bear. It's basically the two of them kind of look out for each other. We have the story of the cage, which is about a person who decides to take part in a scientific experiment where he is locked in a prison and he has to try to escape within 3 hours, and you can read about how he does. The Aged Mother is another interesting sort of folktale where a person is required by his society to essentially, once his mother gets to a certain age, he has to take her up a mountain and leave her there to die. So it's kind of a topic of that one's kind of messed up, but the story itself is interesting. Cemetery Path. So this story takes place in Russia a couple hundred years ago, and basically what it is somebody from the Russian military at the time is sort of dared to walk through a cemetery. He's afraid to do that, and so this time he does it, and we see what happens. The story of William Tell. So this is a famous story that involves a person who is a marksman, essentially. So he's somebody who's very good at shooting a bow and arrow, and he is forced by the sort of tyrant that runs his country to do something with that he really doesn't want to do. And then we have the Ballad of Mulan, which is essentially very similar to the Mulan story from Disney. If you've seen that, or if you're familiar with the real Mulan story, it's a simplified version of that story. Okay, so as we said, you have to write two paragraphs. So you choose one of these stories, and then you write an opinion paragraph. So we're going to start with a T-chart. Do you think your story is a good story? So start listing some of the reasons why, yeah, I think it is a good story. Start listing some of the reasons why, no, you think it's not a good story. And then once you have 3 reasons on one of the sides, then you can start writing your paragraph based on that. So it doesn't matter if you choose yes, it doesn't matter if you choose no, as long as you have 3 reasons. Do not choose both. So don't say something like this part was good, but this part was bad. And the reason you don't want to do that is because it's going to mess everything up and make it difficult to organize within a single paragraph. Obviously, you could write something like that, but you would probably need much, much more space to do that properly. So we're going to pick just one side, either just yes or just no, and write your paragraph. So I've helped you out with your topic sentence here. You can just fill in the blanks. So I believe the short story, and we put quotation marks around short stories, the titles. So I believe the short story, put your title here. So, you can put whatever title you choose. So I believe the short story, The Ballad of Mulan by, I'm going to pronounce that wrong, sorry, Song Na Shang. Sorry, my pronunciation of Chinese is not very good, but the author's name goes there. Is an excellent short story, or you can say is a poor short story. You have to provide 3 points why you think the short story is good or why you think the short story is not so good, and then explain each of your points. Okay, and you should focus on elements of fiction that we've covered. So things like, do you think the plot was good? Do you think the character was good? Do you think the setting was good? What about the conflict, the theme? So you want to focus on those elements. Okay, and then you get your concluding sentence. Your compare-contrast paragraph, you will choose a character from your story. Many of the stories really just feature one character, one major character, so probably fairly easy for you to choose which character. And then think, are you a similar person to this character? So list character traits that this character might have. So character traits, again, are things like, are they an angry person? Are they an honest person? Are they a helpful or kind person? And whatever you think of this character, start listing their traits, and then basically decide, are these traits kind of similar to traits that you have, or do you think you're very different from this person? So just like before, you choose. Do you want to go with, yes, I am very similar to this person, or do you want to go with, no, I'm very different from this person? So again, I've helped you out with a topic sentence. I believe that I'm very similar to, or you can say, I believe that I am very different from. Okay, so just take the part here that you need. You're either going to say similar to, or you are going to say different from the character of. Write their name in here from the short story, and then write your short story name here. So do you think you're similar to this person, or do you think they're different? You're different from this person. Here you're going to write something about the trait of the character here. So you could say the character of Mulan is very brave, and then proof. You have to say something that she did from her story that proves that she's brave, and then explain why that shows that she's brave. So that's what this sort of, why you have 2 points here. So first one, you have to show the part of the story that says she's brave, and then don't just assume that people will understand, oh yeah, well I can see in the story why she's brave. Explain it. Okay? And then you have to go back to yourself. Do you think you have this trait? Or you think, if you're writing that you believe you're similar to, you think you have this trait? Show something from your life. An experience that you have, maybe a way that you think, maybe something that you've done that shows that you also have that trait. Or if you're doing a contrast, that you do not have this trait. Okay, so it's the same thing for 3 character traits, and then you write your concluding sentence. So once you've completed your outlines, I am going to be giving you some feedback on them to help you improve. It's also possible that you could schedule an appointment on Microsoft Teams to talk to me if you prefer to have verbal feedback as well. And if you want verbal feedback but can't get on Microsoft Teams, if it doesn't really work for you, please just let me know. I'm happy to give you a phone call and we can talk over the phone about your work. So once you're done that, you then have to write your paragraphs in full. So when you hand in your finished product, I shouldn't see this outline here. I should just see 2 completed paragraphs. And the marking scheme is going to be very similar to what you've seen before, just slightly modified to fit with the fact the fact in here that you're also dealing with a short story. So we're not just looking at your ability to write a certain kind of paragraph, we're also looking at your ability to think about the story and see if you understand what happened in the story, if you're able to analyze the character and understand, well, what kind of character do you have in your story? So your knowledge mark is going to be, did you complete your outlines in your paragraphs? Are they completed fully? When I read them, is it clear to me that, yes, you understand this story? You know the general basics. You have a general knowledge and understanding of what happens in your story. Are your topic and concluding sentences relevant, and do they provide your paragraphs with structure? So for your topic sentences, hopefully that'll be pretty easy because I've given you most of that. But remember, your concluding sentences need to restate kind of what your position is in the paragraph, and they should also match your topic sentence. So, for example, if you say, I believe I'm very similar to the character of Mulan from the short story The Ballad of Mulan, in your concluding sentence you would say something about, in conclusion, I am very similar to the character of Mulan because I am, and then you could list the 3 traits, brave, maybe selfless, or whatever other traits you think she might have. Okay? And effective supporting details. So this is, do you choose things from the story that effectively prove that this character has this trait? Or if you're talking about your opinion, you say the story is not good or the story is good. Are you choosing things from the story that kind of back up your point? So I'm not looking at the quality of your arguments. That's going to be down here in thinking, but I am looking at, did you choose good things from the story? Thinking is going to be, how do you organize your work? Is it well structured? Are you following an outline? And does it focus? Are your ideas focused? So you're not going all over the place, but you're able to talk one point at a time and prove them. Does your paragraph demonstrate evidence of planning and structure? So that's true for both your outlines and your paragraphs. Insightful analysis of character. So when you're talking about character traits, do the character traits that you choose for your character and the sort of discussion of the evidence, right? The part where you have to explain the proof. So those parts, are they insightful? Are we seeing that not only you're able to take out effective supporting details, but your analysis of them shows that you really understand the character? And same thing in your opinion paragraph. Does your analysis there show that you really understand what's going on in the story? Do you make a really kind of interesting point about how the story fails in a certain area, or how the story really succeeds in a certain area? And convincing use of evidence. So how insightful is your analysis, and how convincing is your analysis? Are people likely to believe you when they read it? Communication. Do your paragraphs flow well, and are they written in the correct style? So these are opinion paragraphs, and they are a compare-contrast paragraph. So because you're going to be putting your opinion in there, you can say I think, you can say I believe. Using that language in these kinds of paragraphs is perfectly fine. So do you write something that looks like a compare paragraph or a contrast paragraph? Do you write something that looks like an opinion paragraph, or are you kind of mixing up some of the different styles? Are you mixing in expository and descriptive and narrative when they shouldn't be there? Or are you actually able to maintain your focus with the correct style? Does your writing flow well? Does one sentence easily go to the next one? And how well do you use vocabulary? So for an example, if you were to choose the cemetery path story, as we said, this story takes place in Russia a couple years back. So you are going to see some vocabulary that you may have to look up some words that aren't really used much in this part of the world or at this time. So for example, words like saber, which is a type of curved sword. So we're talking about, from many years ago when you would have military officers would carry these swords around, or they talk about people called Cossacks, which are a group of people associated with Russia. So you have vocabulary that's kind of fits in with your story. And all these stories have some vocabulary that fits in with them in some way. Okay, so are you able to use that vocabulary? Application, so usual, spelling, grammar, use of tense. So if you're writing about something that happens in the past, make sure you maintain past tense. Subject-verb agreement, so he walks or she walks and not he or she walk, right? You make sure that your verb walk matches up with the subject, he or she or they or we or I. And effective use of transition words where appropriate. So are you using your first, second, for example? Are you using those where they should go? And are you using them in the correct way? So that's it. So you got 2 more paragraphs and an outline. The due dates, as we said, are Thursday, June 4th for your outline, Monday, June 8th for your paragraphs. And then we're almost there. We're going to have one last series of final assessment work to do after June 8th. And that's it. So you're going to have some audio things to do after June 8th to do kind of like your final assessment for your speaking skills. And we should hopefully have everything wrapped up in around June 19th. All right, that's all I've got to say for now. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.